welcome to Friday Night Lecture Series number 1 for the year for the Historical Society of Palm Desert. It's, for those of you who have not been there, I think most of you have, but the firehouse, we've got some jazz going here. Oh, drinks, anyone? The Firehouse Museum is quite something on El Paseo, and it's open right now, Friday through Monday, from 10 to 3, and it also has a robust... What was that, a bird or something? It's open now, and it has a robust archives. So I would encourage anybody that wants to do a research, either for their house or for some history of Palm Desert. It's amazing what's in there. And a lot of it's stored away too, so it's not just what's in there. And the firehouse is located on El Paseo across from Guillermo's, okay. All right, tonight we are so excited and honored to welcome Kurt Leuschner. He is a professor of natural resources at COD. He teaches the following: conservation, entomology, I looked it up, insects, field ornithology, I looked that one up too, the study of birds in their natural habitats, is that, how am I doing? Okay, he's saying okay. Reptiles, GPS navigation, is that another species or something, GPS? Additionally, he teaches and lectures on weekends in bird watching, insects, animal tracking, native plants, and backyard habitats. His most recent project involves the sound recordings of various subspecies of the North American scrub jay. So without further ado, Kurt Leuschner.
Hi everybody. Should we cut some of the lights in the front maybe? Just a little bit? And we'll get this going. Thanks for coming out. This is a great turnout. You know, the game starts in like 3 minutes. All I can figure is you must all be Yankees fans or something. Because I sure wouldn't be here. But I'll get to watch the last innings. That's good. Anyway, welcome. I'm Kurt Leuschner. Yes, I teach here at COD. So this is like a home game for me. You're on my home turf. I've been here 30 years at COD. And tonight we're going to talk about birds. Yeah, COD, Roadrunners. And there's a little flyer I have if you're interested. It's in the back. You get it on the way out. It has my contact information if you want to send me follow-up questions for the rest of your lives on birds and bugs and everything else, like everybody else does. So you might as well join the group. I'm just trying to figure out this computer why it keeps going off here. I have to do what? Sign in. Sign in. No, I shouldn't have to sign in. It's the library's computer. So I don't know what happened. It was on. It keeps going to sleep or something. Sorry, we're working on it. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to see a bunch of birds, and I'm going to tell you what I know about them, and hopefully you'll have a lot of questions. You can ask questions at the end, and if you've got a burning question in the middle, go ahead and, let's hear it. We have a group called the Desert Cities Bird Club. I know some of you are already members of that, and that's great. And again, if you take that flyer or send me an email later, then you can get in the club if you want to. All I need is your name and your email address, and I'll add you to the list. And then you'll hear about bird watching activities in and around the Coachella Valley that happen throughout the year. Most of them are free. And you'll hear about events like this one and anything to do with birds.
Are you still doing that 100 bird watchers where you start at home before you pick us up on the bus?
Yeah, so every year in April on the Friday nearest to Earth Day, we do the birding bus tour, century run we call it, and that's a fundraiser for the Friends of the Desert Mountains. So you're all welcome to join in for that, and that's again on the Friday. It's usually around April 21st, near Earth Day. And it's all day, well 8 to 4, and we go to all these birding hotspots and try to see 100 birds.
We done that?
It's fun and it raises money for conservation. And this little guide here that I did, these are $1 if you're interested. This has all the top 10 birding sites here in the Coachella Valley in one little pamphlet. So it's kind of a handy thing to have, so you know where to go on your own too. And then this guide here, this one's $9, so if you buy them both, it's 10 for both of them. But this one has, not all, but most of the birds that you're going to see in a typical Coachella Valley backyard. And it's got some other things too, like bugs and mammals and a few plants and things. So it's kind of a good thing to have when you're just wondering what's in your yard and you don't have time to send me an email. You can look in here. Or just send me an email, send me a photo. Even a lousy photo will do. I know this is going to work because it was up there before.
I think it's
So there it is. Now let's just keep it there. All right, I better go fast before it goes away. So let's get into some birds. So this is our local quail, right? Here in the desert, the Gamble's quail. Note how it's spelled. It's not like casino gambling. It's named after William Gamble. And if you go up the Highway 74, you'll start to get into the California quail habitat. They're kind of a mid-elevation quail. And then higher up yet, up in Garner Valley, Idlewild, you'll see the mountain quail. So there's actually 3 species in the area, but this is the one you're going to see at the low levels here. The only exception is the Indian Canyons. Down in the Indian Canyons in Palm Springs, California quail have actually come down the slopes, and they occur there on the valley floor. But everywhere else it's going to be Gamble's quail. So this is the common hawk that's in your backyard hunting your mourning doves, right? So if you notice a hawk kind of swooping through your backyard and causing a big stir amongst the other birds, it's going to be this one. So I'll save you an email on that one. You don't have to email me and ask me what hawk it was. It's a Cooper's hawk. This happens to be a young bird. You can tell by the streaking on the front. As it ages, after a year, it'll turn kind of a reddish color on the front. But it's kind of a small hawk. It's very maneuverable, and that's why it's comfortable in your backyard. And I have one that actually swoops right by my front door and down the breezeway there. It doesn't seem to mind getting in those tight spaces. Cooper's hawk, they're year-round residents. Going up in size, the red-shouldered hawk is here too all year. They're a little bit bigger than the Cooper's hawk. And they like the date palm trees. So if there's any of those near where you're hanging out, or maybe at the aquatic center, that whole parking lot, that's where you're more likely to see a red-shouldered hawk. They like the eucalyptus trees as well, if there's any of those around. That's where you'll find them. And they're not quite as maneuverable as the Cooper's hawks. You're not really going to see them in your backyard, but you'll see them in those other places I mentioned, the red-shouldered hawk. And then the largest hawk, and I do see these right here on campus. This one likes the open areas, like our ball field, behind us. This is the red-tailed hawk. So you'll see him sitting up on those big light poles, surveying his domain. And you'll see him along the I-10 freeway. He likes the open fields over there by Acrisure Arena, etc., looking for squirrels and things like that. And they're here year-round. Red-tailed hawk. That's the one you hear in all the movies. Now this isn't a hawk, but it's a raptor, a bird of prey. It's a kestrel. Used to be called a sparrowhawk. It's actually a type of falcon, and it's our smallest falcon. And they're here year-round. And they're one of the few birds that can hover in place. So if you see a raptor hovering, it's likely to be an American kestrel. The other raptor that might hover is the northern harrier. It's bigger though. These guys will nest in kestrel boxes. which you can hang up at a high level if you want to try to attract one, or they'll nest in palm trees that aren't over pruned. Another reason not to cut your palms. And they're good to have around because they're eating a lot of mice. A lot of mice and small other insects. Did I skip one? No. Okay. This is the killdeer. It's actually a type of plover, shorebird, but it's year-round. And they nest on the ground. You can actually see the eggs there. See, they look like rocks, kind of speckled. And they'll nest right on the ground in a gravel driveway or a dirt road. And then the female will guard her eggs. And then if you come too close, this is the one that kind of pretends like her wing is broken, and she'll kind of drag her wing and try to lead you away from the nest. So if you ever have one of these nesting near where you live, you probably ought to put some cones up and some yellow tape, around there. I'm not kidding, so somebody doesn't walk over the nest or back over it with a car. Yeah. And then keep the dogs away from it too. But this is a killdeer. It's got two bands on its chest, pretty easy to identify. And you'll hear them sometimes in the middle of the night. They say their name, killdeer, killdeer. That's how it got the name. You'll see seagulls around town, especially in the winter, and almost all the time they're going to be ring-billed gulls. So if you're unsure what kind of gull it is, again, you don't have to email me on that one either. Just assume it's a ring-billed gull, because that's what I'm going to say, because 98% of them around here are ring-billed gulls. But we occasionally do get California gull, it's true, and then if you go down to the Salton Sea, you can see herring gull and some other species too. But this is our #1 gull because it's very common away from water. Those other gulls have to be near the coast or the Salton Sea. They don't stray too far. But this one is happy to be in our urban environment, and in the morning they come up from the Salton Sea and then they spread out. Some of them go to Walmart, some go to Target, some go to Costco, so that's where you'll see them. But notice they have a ring around their bill, so hence the name ring-billed gull. The rock pigeon or the rock dove, they've changed the name, but it is in the dove and pigeon family, and they're not native, and they're everywhere where humans seem to be, and they come in all different kinds of colors, and there's a lot of them around town, especially along Highway 111. Now this is a native dove, the mourning dove, M-O-U-R-N, because it sounds like it's in mourning. It's not like good morning. So here's what it sounds like. It's mourning. And this actually is the official city bird of Palm Deserts. And I know some of you have heard the story, but it's all my fault. I went into the city council one day, this was 20 years ago now, and I proposed the cactus wren to be our city bird, because I was a little jealous. I was teaching 30 years ago down at La Quinta Middle School, and I used to see Gamby the quail dancing around on the corner there, because they have the Gamble's quail down there in La Quinta, and I thought, well, I live in Palm Desert, we should have a city bird too. So I proposed the cactus wren, and instead of choosing my cactus wren, they chose the mourning dove. So I've been meaning to run for mayor so we can have a recall on this bird. So maybe when I retire I'll get around to doing that. Hopefully you'll vote for me and vote to get rid of the mourning dove. Not that, okay, I mean it's a bird, it's okay, but they're everywhere. There's nothing really special about it, and the cactus wren would have been the perfect bird to kind of represent the desert landscape that we have here at Palm Desert. Now this is the new dove in town. Maybe you've noticed it's bigger than the mourning dove. It's lighter in color. It's more of an ivory color, and it's got that black band on the back of its neck. It's called the Eurasian collared dove. And guess where it came from? Eurasia, via Florida. So it's been in the country for 100 years almost, but only in the last quarter century have their numbers really exploded. And so now they seem to be everywhere from here to Alaska, kind of taken over. Eurasian collared dove. So watch for those. And in the summer, we have this dove to add to the mix, which I really like. It's the white-winged dove. They're only here in the summer, although a few of them do linger throughout the winter, so you could still see one in the winter, but mostly in the summer. And this one says, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you? The white-winged dove. And this common ground dove is the actual name of it. I like to call it the uncommon ground dove because they're not common anymore, at least. Maybe they used to be, but I sure don't see many of them. And maybe you don't either, I'm not sure. But if you do see things like common ground doves, I would say report them to eBird. So if you haven't heard about eBird, it's a website. It's the letter E and then the word bird, ebird.org. Just go to ebird.org, start a free account. It's real easy and it's fun. And it's a great place where you can document your bird sightings when you're out and about or just watching birds in your own yard. So if you see something common, you can report that, and that's good data too. If you see something unusual, you want to report that, let the world know. And if you see common ground doves, you should report that because we're trying to figure out if their numbers are declining or not. And so your data helps, tell the story. And so this is happening all over the world now with this eBird. It's fantastic. So much data now is being gathered. It's like a Christmas bird count every day of the year, all over the world. So join the citizen scientists who are doing this. ebird.org. Like I go on a morning walk, usually every morning, just around my neighborhood in Palm Desert, and when I get back, I'll just jump on the computer, or you can even do it on your phone. There's an app. And I just quickly report what I heard and saw during that walk, and all that data is just compiling, and it starts to show trends.
Oh, I did.
Oh yeah, road runners in the desert, right? The greater road runner there's actually a lesser road runner down in Ecuador. This is the greater road runner, officially. And they're a member of the cuckoo family. And unlike most birds who have 3 toes in the front and 1 in the back, they've got 2 toes in the front and 2 in the back, 2 and 2. It's called zygodactyl. And that allows them to run, faster, not put all that weight on one little toe in the back. The 3 and 1 arrangement is better if you're a perching bird, just kind of sitting on the wire all day. But if you're running around the ground like this guy, you want 2 and 2, kind of spread out the weight. And they can run up to 18 miles an hour. And they're meat eaters. They're little carnivores, little dinosaurs. So they like to eat lizards and snakes and baby birds and bird eggs and snatch hummingbirds out of the air. They're not a favorite of other birds. Yeah, so when the roadrunner shows up, the other birds get very angry and excited. And they're here year-round. One question I get is, where do the roadrunners go in the winter? Because you don't seem to notice them as much. And the answer is they don't go anywhere. They're still here. They're just not as active. Maybe they might shift to another neighborhood or a different yard, but they're still around. And you can still see them throughout the year. They just won't see them as much at certain times of the year. And also when they're nesting, you don't notice them as much because they're hiding more. Greater roadrunner. It's also the mascot of COD. There's another COD. We're College of the Desert, right? COD. And I always wondered why our email domain was collegeofthedesert.edu, and I got to type that out every time. I'm like, why aren't we just cod.edu? Because College of DuPage in Illinois snatched the domain cod.edu. And so I went to Illinois one summer, and my parents are from Illinois, and I had the family with me, and I said, we're taking a side trip here. We're going to go to this other COD. I got to see what's going on there. And guess what their mascot is? Roadrunners. Oh. They stole our mascot too. There's never been a record of a roadrunner in Illinois. 0. And yet they stole our mascot, they stole our email domain, they stole our name, they're the Roadrunners.
Is it a 2-year college?
It is, yeah. And their colors are green and white, ours are red. Anyway. Okay, so there's 2 owls that frequent our yards all year round. This is one of them. So if you're driving around at night or coming home after dinner and it's dark, like, I come up Portola Avenue, it's dark, I'll sometimes see a barn owl kind of swooping through the headlights. So if you see like a white ghost, come and go at night, that's a barn owl. And they're here year round, and they nest in holes, they nest in cavities, and they'll nest in barn owl boxes if you hang one up at the right place. And they're in a family all their own. All the other owls are in one family, and then this owl is in its own family. And one of the reasons it's in its own family is because it doesn't sound at all like an owl. I'm going to play it for you. By the way, you guys should get... This one app is free. It's called Merlin. MERLIN. Just download it tonight. It's free. Merlin from Cornell Lab of Ornithology in New York. And it's a fantastic app. You can use it all around the world. And it has all the birds on there. You'll have them on your phone. You'll have the sounds. You'll have all the information in the range maps. And you can even hold it up to sounds, and it will tell you what you're hearing, wherever you are in the world. And it's pretty good. It's getting better, AI. But it's almost as good as me. It's even close.
No, never.
It's getting close. But let me play you a barn owl, because it just sounds so un-owl-like. So I'm going down to the O's. Sorry. There it is. Okay, ready? Barn owl. Listen for this tonight.
Mm-hmm. Screechy.
We have that.
That sounds like somebody in trouble. If you heard that at 3 a.m. next door, you might call 911. That's a barn owl. See, that's not very owl-like, huh? That's not hoot hoot. They should have called that the screech owl, right? But anyway, that's a barn owl. And that's one of the reasons it's in a family all its own, because it just doesn't even sound like an owl. Also, it has a heart-shaped facial disc, which is also kind of unique among owls. Instead of being round, it's more of a heart shape.
Yeah.
Anyway, watch for that at night. And this is the other one that's around. This is one you'll see perched up on a telephone pole at night, or on a big tree, or maybe even on the peak of your house, at night, on your roof. Big silhouette. And he'll be hooting away. He sounds like an owl. He goes, there's about 5 hoots.
Except we heard the I'm hungry screech the other night.
Right, the female sounds different, and the young sounds different.
She sounded, it was frightening, but Merlin also called it a great horned owl.
They do make other sounds, you're right, and I'm going to play one for you that's not
She was
typical.
pissed off.
Great horned owl, there it is. Okay, here we go. Sometimes you'll hear this. It's a little more like a barn owl, but it's more chirpy. That's a young bird. That's usually going to be in like February and March, when the young are hungry. And the female sometimes does this weird barking,
That's what we heard.
almost frog-like.
I thought it was a frog, and then I turned to Merlin and said it was a great horned owl.
So there's a lot of weird sounds at night, so try to start sorting them out. But remember, you can turn your phone onto video and record these sounds, and you can send me those recordings, and I'll listen to them, and I'll tell you what they are. That's another way to do it, if Merlin isn't helping you. Fun with sounds. Here's another night bird. This one's only here in the summer, and actually the parking lot right out here is one of the best places to see the lesser nighthawk, because there's some lights. Any parking lot that's got lights on it, during the summer, you might see these lesser nighthawks swooping around the lights and just eating bugs all night long. Some of the big churches around town have lights in their parking lots, and those are the places to see the lesser nighthawk.
How big is that bird?
It's not very big. It's like a mourning dove size, a little slimmer, and it's got these, fairly long wings. But it just looks like a small owl or a big bat, flying around at night. Lesser nighthawk, just in the summer. This bird's here year-round, but you mostly notice it in the summer, because in the winter they kind of hunker down. They live up in the cliffs around us, and then during the day they'll forage and hunt insects all over the valley, the white-throated swift. And they never land. They never land all day long. They can't land. They can't perch. Their feet are so small that they don't have the ability to perch. So they have to keep flying. So they eat on the wing, they mate on the wing, they sleep on the wing, they do everything on the wing. And at the end of the day, they do have feet. You can kind of see them poking out there. They're just the tiniest little things. They're just barely big enough to just kind of cling onto the side of the rock and then scuttle into their little hole on some big cliff over there. But they, like I said, they physically can't perch. So that's one way to tell a swift from a swallow. Swallows are kind of similar. Swallows will perch freely on the telephone wires. Swifts will never perch. Anyway, white-throated swift. Hummingbirds. Okay, so there's 2 hummingbirds you got to learn, because they're here all year. And this is one of them, the Annis hummingbird. The Annis hummingbird is a 1/4 inch bigger than the next one I'm going to show you. But the size doesn't really show itself unless they're sitting side by side. The Annis hummingbird has a little more of a greenish wash on the front.
Belly.
The Costas hummingbird, the next one I'm going to show you, is whiter on the front, less green. The color on the throat's another key. The Annis hummingbird is more of a pinkish red, right? Purpley, well, I don't want to say purple because the next one's purple, but it's got more of a reddish tone to the purpleness. Whereas the Costas hummingbird really has that grape purple look. I see a couple people wearing a Costas hummingbird color there. It's really got purple. And notice how the throat, or what's called the gorget, extends out on the Costas. Almost like a handlebar mustache kind of sticking out there on the side in a point. And I'll go back to the Annis. See, it's a little more clean cut on the throat. Although it does stick out a little in the corner, and that can fool you sometimes.
That's the male color.
These are males, right? Start with the males. The females can be tough to ID. So start with the males, learn those first, and then you can work on the females who won't have the color on the throat as much. So that's the Annis. At my house, I live here in Palm Desert, I've got all Costas and 1 Annis. I got 99 Costas and 1 Annis. But at your house it might be different. You may have more Annis and fewer Costas. Kind of depends on where you live in the valley and what kind of plants you have in your yard and your neighbors. Because the Costas prefers the desert landscape, desert plants. The Annis likes the non-native stuff more. So it kind of depends on, again, what's in your yard may determine what kind of hummingbirds you have there. And they're both here year-round, although they do migrate. Some of them migrate, but many of them stay all winter long. And if you feed, there's the female Costas, you see she's very plain on the throat. If you feed hummingbirds, remember it's 4 parts water to 1 part sugar, 4 to 1. So 4 cups of hot water for every 1 cup of sugar. Just use white sugar, don't use anything else. And no red dye, and you don't have to boil the water, but use hot, water, hot tap water, so it's enough to dissolve it. If you want to boil it, you can, but I don't have time to boil it. I go through a lot of sugar at my house, so I have to go down to Smart and Final and buy those big 50-pound bags. And I usually get 2 of them, and that'll last me a few weeks, but that's a lot of sugar. So you can come over to my house sometime and check out the hummingbirds. I got quite a good hummingbird show there. Some of you have been there. So, again, grab the flyer, email me later and say, hey, Kurt, I want to stop by, and I'll invite you over, and you can check out the hummingbirds. It's a pretty good show, especially this time of year. Right around October, right around now, between now and March, the numbers are really going to ramp up. at my house. So there'll be 40, 50, 60, sometimes up to 100 hummingbirds at once.
Oh my God.
Yeah, question?
We have a lot of Costa hummingbirds as well. And when we, about 4 years ago, they chattered all the time. Now they're absolutely silent. Why would that be?
So your hummingbirds went silent on you.
Yes. I mean, we go out almost every morning and just watch them and listen to them.
I mean, they're not that noisy in the first place, but so maybe when you thought you were hearing them chatter a lot, it was just a short period during a certain season. Maybe the Rufous hummingbird was in town. That usually stirs them up when a Rufous hummingbird comes by.
I don't know, we took videos of them and you could clearly...
But I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, really. I have to think about that one. But, start thinking like a hummingbird. Maybe you figure it out. But make sure you plant native plants, of course. So if your hummingbird feeders, go dry, then they've always got something to feed on. You don't want to get them all dependent on the feeder and then not keep them full. So at my house, we're on hummingbird feeder watch like 24 hours a day. So somebody in the family's got to watch the feeders or fill the feeders or move the feeders. I can never leave my house. Yes, and they also eat insects, especially the females when they're nesting. They need extra protein. So when you'll see them, if you see them just out in the open, kind of just doing this, doing like looks like they're doing nothing. They're actually catching little bugs and sucking them up. And then they mix it with the nectar and they make like a protein smoothie. And they'll feed that to their young. Yes, get some bugs mixed in, good protein. So 2 times of the year, the Rufous hummingbird will come through town, in spring and in fall. It's already passed, it was a few weeks ago, but you'll get a couple of these showing up, and that will cause a stir at your feeders, and your silent hummingbirds will suddenly come to life when this guy shows up, because he's really aggressive, and he'll scare off all the other Costas or Anna's hummingbirds that are there. And when I have a Rufous at my feeders, I always hear it before I see it. I hear that there's some kind of ruckus going on at the feeders, and I know, oh, the Rufous must be in town. It must be April, or it must be October, or September. But look at the very different coloration on the Rufous. It's all kind of an orangey hummingbird with an orange throat. It's really beautiful. These guys nest up in the Sierras, and again, they just zoom through town in the spring and the fall on their way to and from the Sierras. This time of year, they're heading down to Mexico and Central America to spend the winter. Yeah.
I don't have a lot of hummingbirds. I keep the feeders up, but I seem to always have one that just sits up there, or the swing that I have, and just searches them out and just chews everybody.
Yeah, the old bully question. Yeah, these hummingbird bullies, they'll guard the feeders and scare everybody off. And I've had bullies at my feeders, and for years I had a bully just guarding them all, and I didn't have many hummingbirds. And then one year, about 7 years ago, I don't know, they either chased off the bully or called a truce, but all the hummingbirds decided to start sharing, and they ganged up on the bully and kind of chased him off.
So it's not just because he's a male. There are other males that eat alongside the female?
Male hummingbirds typically will behave like bullies at the feeders. And so if you cluster your feeders too closely together, one bully can guard them all and keep them off. So one thing you can do is spread your feeders out a little bit so that bully can't possibly get to all of them, and then he'll get tired and maybe give up, or he'll just stick to one of them and let the other ones feed on that.
So what's their lifespan?
Thank you.
Lifespan of a hummingbird isn't very long. I mean, if they're fortunate enough to get through the first year, that's what gets most birds. Then they might live a few years, 3, 4, 5 years, if they're lucky, but not double digits on a hummingbird. Generally speaking, the smaller the bird, and these are the smallest birds in the world, have the shortest lifespans. And the larger birds, the eagles and the hawks and the albatrosses, can live many, many decades, even as long as we can. So the larger birds live longer. Smaller birds don't usually get to 10 on average.
Oh.
Woodpeckers. So we have one resident woodpecker. So if you see a woodpecker in your yard, it's likely to be this one, the ladder-backed woodpecker. The male's got a red on the crown, the female doesn't. You can see the difference. So it's year-round, it's a resident, and ladder-backed woodpecker, it was named, very appropriately. They do come to the hummingbird feeders, yeah, you're right. And so they'll hang on your feeder and kind of spill all the juice and peck big holes in there. And in the winter, we get the northern flicker. So this woodpecker is a migrant, and it comes down from the north, and a few of them will winter here in the valley. And this is an unusual woodpecker. It feeds on ants, and so you'll see it on the lawns, feeding on ants and anthills. So it's the only woodpecker you'll ever see on the ground, hopping around with the robins and the bluebirds that are on the grass, because it's feeding on ants. So northern flicker, they're much larger than the ladder-backed woodpecker. So watch for them. They should be arriving soon. There'll be some of them around the valley. I see this guy every day. There's one right out in the parking lot here. You've probably got one in your yard. There's one by every swimming pool. Yeah, they love water, this bird, the black phoebe. So if you have a swimming pool, your neighbor does, you've got to have a black phoebe sitting on the wall or on the lawn furniture, pooping on it, and eating bugs all day long. That's what they do. But they're really cute, and they're year-round, and like I said, they're always going to be near water. And even a small, almost a dog dish is enough to attract them. But they need water. Unlike the sage phoebe, close relative of the black phoebe, which doesn't have this connection to water. So this is one you'll see in the open lots and the dry fields and the open areas where there's little or no water. They don't really care about the water. And they're not as black, they're more of a gray color with a kind of a burnt orange color on the belly. So watch for those too, they're year-round. Sage phoebe. And it's named after Thomas Say, S-A-Y. His last name was Say. This is our star bird. In fact, it's on the cover of the field guide there. The vermilion flycatcher. So if you have one of those near you, you're very lucky. Show it off. The good news is they're becoming more common. They're more common than they've ever been. They're expanding their range. They're moving north. Climate change in this case is actually helping this bird, I think, spread to further northern places. Yeah.
We have one that comes out to the living desert, but it's not there all the time. And so we're having a discussion the other day about where does it go when it's...
Well, vermilion flycatchers do move around, and some of them are true migrants. They leave the valley at certain times of the year, usually in the summer. But more and more we're seeing them stay in the summer and nest where they didn't nest before. And so you can find vermilion flycatchers now year-round in the valley, every month of the year. I think 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you probably couldn't. They were more of a winter resident here. But now we're seeing them all year.
We didn't see him at all during the summer, and last week he showed.
But they move around, and and I bird at the living desert a lot too. And then some years we have a couple of them there all winter, and other winters we don't find them. So they come and go, but they're around, and you probably have one near you. So watch for them. There is one that hangs out right near the parking lot here, in this grassy area. When I come to the library, I often see it perched on one of the little signs out there, feeding on bugs. It's a really pretty bird. Everybody loves to see that one. I actually saw my first Western kingbird at Dodger Stadium. How the Dodgers doing? Anybody tracking the game? That was in 1977, but I've got records of all these things in my head. This is a summer resident here in Southern California and the Coachella Valley. So they've left by now, but they'll be back again in April or May, Western kingbird. They love the palm trees, and they're very noisy birds. And they're a large flycatcher, so they eat the bigger bugs.
Dodgers scored 3 in the bottom of the first.
Wow.
That's 3-0.
What'd you say?
The Dodgers are up 3-0.
That's only
So we'll catch them later.
bottom of the.
All right, thanks. Crows. Do we have crows in the valley? Why are you laughing? Look, okay, here's another common question, and so let's clear the air on this one. We have both crows and ravens in the valley, yes. Most birds that are big and black are going to be ravens. So if you're not sure if it's a crow or a raven, guess raven. Start there, it's your default. And you're going to be right most of the time. 80%, maybe 85%. So most large black birds that could be a crow or could be a raven in the valley are ravens. And again, 20, 30 years ago, I would have said almost all of them, 99% or more would have been ravens. But in the last 30 years, and I've lived here over 30 years now, 35, we've seen the crow population continually increase. And so now crows are well established, and COD, right where you're at, happens to be one of those places where crows occur in pretty good numbers. So we always see them here on campus now. They kind of like the parks, the agriculture areas, if we had any, they would like those, but they like the parks, and COD is kind of like a big park, and there's a park next door. Crows don't like the desert, they don't like the open desert. So as soon as you get away from the parks and the golf courses, you're not going to see crows. They're all going to be ravens. But if you're in town or you're near a golf course or a park, then yeah, crow is a possibility. So start to try to learn the difference between the two. How do you tell them apart? The best way to tell them apart is by the voice. You know, crows go, caw, caw, pretty high-pitched, kind of nasal. And a raven has more of a low-pitched croaking. You know, it's not that caw, caw. So to me, the voice is the easiest way. As soon as I hear them, I know right off what they are. But they don't always call. So then you got to look at them. Ravens are a little bit bigger, but that can be tricky to judge. They're not that much bigger, but they are bigger. The raven has a wedge-shaped tail, and a crow has a fan-shaped tail. But again, that's sometimes hard to judge. And then people don't even know what a wedge is. So,
is there a natural predator? They just seem to be growing in numbers.
Yeah, not really. And they're the smartest birds in the world. So they can outsmart us and any other bird. So there's really nothing that can get them.
Which one is the smartest? Raven.
Raven or crow? Well, the whole family, the corvid family that they're in, is considered to be the most intelligent bird family of all. Includes jays and magpies and crows. But the crows are well known for being super smart, solving puzzles, making tools. There's been many books written about crows and ravens and their smartness. Yes?
I thought heard that the crows were eating the young tortoise out in the middle of the desert.
So crows would eat them if you gave them a chance, but again, crows don't like to go out in the desert. They're afraid of the wilderness. Crows are only here because we're here and we've transformed the desert into parks. That's why crows are here. Ravens, though, are the problem when it comes to eating tortoises.
Okay.
Yeah, when ravens aren't eating our trash, which they love to eat, they're out there scouring the desert and looking for any baby tortoise that might be crawling around and gobble them up by the dozens. And there's so many ravens now because there's so many of us and there's so much trash that it's overwhelming to the tortoises. So their numbers are dropping quite fast, and ravens are a big part of that story. So there's just too many ravens. There's too many ravens, and it's our fault. So, you know, I love birds and I love ravens, and they're really cool, but there's just too many of them, and so there are programs to try to reduce raven numbers in certain areas where they're really having a huge impact. So sometimes people do need to get involved in those things, and that's part of our wildlife management that we teach here at COD. Yeah?
I heard that they were doing some type of sterilization program or trying to make it where they wouldn't, they could mate, but they wouldn't get anything out of it.
The ravens, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be happening, but that's complicated and costly, and it doesn't solve the problem. Although in certain areas where they're desperate to get the raven numbers down, they're going to try things like that, and it might help a little bit.
I think what's more effective along the lines of what you're talking about is they find the nest and oil the eggs.
Finding the nest and oiling the eggs is one way to make sure the eggs don't hatch, yes. But again, that's tricky. That's a lot of work. You try climbing up those cliffs and, you know, use the drones, okay, spray them. Yeah, that drones could help. So somebody's got to fly the drones and find the nest. Yeah, that's a lot of work, I'm just saying. But yeah, all these little things can help and are being done to some degree. But it is a problem you're gonna hear more about. One thing you can do though is at least cover your trash. You know, just don't let your trash cans be exposed in any way, because the ravens will be there like that. You've seen it. You walk around in the morning and you see somebody's garbage can's been just ransacked all over the street. That's ravens. The minute you give them a crack in the bin, they're gonna get to it. It happens here on campus all the time. So that's one thing you can do, is just don't help them out by feeding them trash. Yeah.
Do they like dogs? I think I've seen some dying.
Do ravens like dogs? I don't know. Ravens are smart and dogs are nice, so maybe they figured it out. Or maybe they're just like teasing them and chasing them. They can, you know, these birds are so smart, these ravens and crows, that they can recognize individual faces. So they can tell you from you from you, you know. So they know who they like and who they don't like in the neighborhood. So you want to make sure you're one of the people that they like, otherwise they're going to track you down. We better move on. Earlier I showed you a swift, the white-throated swift, and then I mentioned the swallow. Well, swallows are kind of like swifts. They fly around eating bugs all day in the air, but swallows can perch. And cliff swallows, which are only here in the summer, make mud nests and put them up under bridges or eaves of a house or underpasses over Interstate 10, like at Cook Street. So sometimes you'll notice lots of swallows flying around the overpasses when you're getting on the freeway, or if you're going into some of the country clubs like the Reserve. Sometimes I go in there, there's a big bridge there, and you see all these swallows flying around because they're nesting under the bridges. And notice that their nests have a roof on them. The very similar barn swallow makes a mud nest, but it's only the cup part, the bottom part, doesn't make the roof. So you can tell the nest of the cliff swallow. These are the famous swallows that go to Capistrano every year and used to nest there too. And then one year they stopped coming there. And then they started using loudspeakers to play the song or the chirping call of the cliff swallow, trying to attract the cliff swallows back to Capistrano. I'm not sure how successful they've been.
Why did they stop coming?
Well, you know, they got tired of the place, or they probably remodeled. I'll bet you anything they remodeled some of the buildings, and the swallows showed up and said, no, I don't like that. I got a better place over here. You know, or the bugs, you know, maybe they started spraying too many insecticides around, and suddenly there's nothing to eat or feed their young, and so of course they can't survive there. That's probably a big part of it, actually. So you know, try to limit the amount of insecticides you use for sure in your own yards. Make it, you know, absolute minimum, because you'll be affecting the food chain and the ecosystem in many ways, including these guys. Cliff swallow. As I was, you know, parking out here like you did, I heard the verdant in the parking lot. So there's one out there. They're all over town. They're in your yard. They make this little incessant little chip, chip, chip all day long. Tiny little bird, like a little mouse, and yellowish head, although it's not that bright. This is a great photo, but normally you don't even notice how bright yellow they can be. It's got a little bit of chestnut on the shoulder there. And they're cute birds. They're here year-round, but what you'll notice are their nests. So if you've noticed in your Palo Verde tree or your mesquite tree especially, or ironwood tree if you have them, you'll notice these round nests about the size of a football almost, made out of sticks. And there'll be a side entrance. That's the verdin. So it's a tiny little bird, but he makes a really big nest. And the male does all the nest building, and he'll build more than one nest. He'll build maybe three nests in a season. And the female will choose the best one, and that's the one she'll lay the eggs in, and then the others are just little man caves for the males to hang out in and watch the game. That's where they're at right now, watching the Dodgers up 3-0. I hear this guy wherever I go, so if you start tuning into his song, you know, you'll notice he's more common than you think, but every yard's got Buick's wrens, I think. And I feed mine freeze-dried mealworms. So you can buy mealworms freeze-dried. You can get them online if you want them delivered to your house, or go to Lowe's or Walmart, some of these places. And just get the freeze-dried kind. You don't have to get the live Wrigley kind, although you can at PetSmart, places like that. Just get the freeze-dried kind and get a little dish out there, and you can put a few in the dish every morning like I do. And then the Buick's wren shows up right on cue, and then he'll feed. And I'll scatter some around on the ground or in a stump and make him work for him too. So he's poking around and probing all day looking for those mealworms. But they're year-round residents here. They've got that white line over the eye. It's called a supercilium. That helps distinguish it from the house wren, which doesn't have the white line over the eye. But it's our common wren in the Coachella Valley, Buick's wren, named after a guy named Thomas Buick. He was an Englishman, he was a wood engraver, but he was also a friend and a benefactor of Audubon, John James Audubon. So Audubon didn't have any money, he was broke. But what he could do is pay you by naming a bird after you. So a lot of birds were named by Audubon for people who helped him, you know, fund his great work, you know, Birds of America, his art book project. And so this was one of those people who helped him along the way, Thomas Buick.
That's right.
So he got a wren named after him.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is the bird that I proposed for the city of Palm Desert. We got a good turnout here too, so we should all march over to the city council next and just demand a change right now. I mean, but it's the largest wren in North America. It's really beautiful. This picture is a little dull. I wish I had a brighter one, but it's got spots and speckles and different colors and stripes. And it's very loud. It sounds like a car trying to turn over. You know when you turn your car on and it doesn't quite start, it goes run, 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 run. That's what the cactus wren sounds like. And they really represent the desert well. And they nest in cactus. They're one of the few birds who's not affected by cactus. Look at that. And it actually builds its nest in a large cactus specimen too. Very few birds do that. It is the state bird of Arizona, so they got it right. And sadly though, they're not as common as they used to be in the Coachella Valley. It's another bird that if you see one in the Coachella Valley, you really should document it on ebird.org. Because they're starting to disappear, even from our own valley, and it's kind of sad. Probably because we turned it down, gave it to the mourning dove.
We're flying to Arizona.
Yeah. Now these cute little guys are going to show up any second now, maybe tomorrow. I'm still waiting to hear my first one of the fall, but it might be tomorrow on tomorrow morning's walk, I'll bet you. This is like right when they show up. They nest in high fir forests, like at the highest elevations of the Sierras or the Cascades, all the way up between here and Alaska. And this time of the year, right now, they fly south and they will winter in the Coachella Valley. And they'll be in our backyards all winter long, hunting little bugs and hopping around. And you don't really even know they're there unless you kind of tune into their little song. It sounds like Morse code. Anybody remember what Morse code sounds like? You know, just this random little, that's what they sound like. Morse code. So listen for that. Ruby crown king, that was. If you make them mad, they'll flash their little ruby crown. This is a year-round resident, the male on the right, female on the left. You can see the difference. The male's got a black cap. Female doesn't, but it's the black-tailed gnatcatcher. Guess what they eat? Good guess. So they're good to have around. They love Palo Verde trees in particular, creosote bushes. Those are two of their absolute favorites. Smoke trees. So wherever you see those plants, you'll find the black-tailed gnatcatcher. And this time of year, right around now, they'll be joined here in the valley by the blue-gray gnatcatcher. The blue-gray gnatcatcher nests at about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 feet elevation in the pinyon juniper belt.
Crazy.
But in the fall, right about now, they come down the slopes and then they winter in the Coachella Valley and they kind of hang out with the black-tailed gnatcatchers. And they're kind of tough to tell apart because remember, the female black-tailed gnatcatcher doesn't have a black cap, so she looks a lot like the blue-gray gnatcatcher. For me, the best way to tell them apart is to listen and hear their voice. This one has a very nasal, almost like a cat mewing kind of sound, whereas the other one has a very harsh kind of a it's not nasal at all. So the sound can really help. But also, other than that, you have to look at the underside of the tail, which is often very hard to do. This one has almost a pure white on the underside, and the other one has more black. But it's very tricky. Come on some of the bird watching, and we can talk about these subtle differences as we're seeing the bird. That's where we can really learn. Here's another bird that's becoming more common than it used to be. And that's a good thing, because it's such a beautiful bird. It used to be only a winter resident here in the valley. They would come down from the hills during the fall and winter. They nest up at the tram and the top of the mountains. But now we've got some that are actually spending the whole summer here with us in some of our areas, park-like areas. So there's some year-round residents now. It's kind of neat. They don't seem to mind the heat. Western bluebird. They live up in the mountains. Maybe they should have been called the mountain bluebird, but they named it the western bluebird. There is another species though called the mountain bluebird, which is not common. This is a bird that passes through on migration in the spring and fall, and true to its name, it is a hermit. It kind of hangs out all by itself. You never see flocks of these things. You just see them one at a time, and that's why they can be in your yard. They're going to be on the ground, by the way, rustling around in the leaves. And they can go unnoticed, even for the whole fall or winter. But they're around, so you might catch one of these guys kind of scratching in the leaf litter one day, all by itself. It's called a hermit thrush. And they're brown with kind of a rusty tail. There's another similar thrush that's all brown, but this one has a more rusty tail than compared to the rest of the body. Something to watch for in the winter. Another bird to watch for in the winter, starting now, is the American robin. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, I saw my first one of the fall at the Living Desert. That's the only one I've seen so far this fall, but I think more are coming. So watch for these guys. Some years we have a lot, some years we don't have so many. You may remember a couple of winters ago, they were everywhere. There were hundreds and hundreds of them, just everywhere throughout Southern California. It was really weird. We've never seen that happen. And then last year, they were really hard to find, so you never know. It usually depends on the food availability and the climate. Those are the main two factors. But American robin, winter bird here, coming soon. This is a year-round resident, the northern mockingbirds. This is kind of like our nightingale. Here's another email I can save you the trouble of sending me. What's that bird, Kurt, that I hear singing all night long? Yeah, northern mockingbird. I call it the Lionel Richie bird. Because it sings all night long, right? And it's a mimic. It's in the family Mimidae, along with other thrashers. They mimic other birds. This one is the king of the mimics, though. Almost its whole repertoire is stolen from other birds. And so it will mimic your cat, it'll mimic your garage door opening sound, it'll mimic whatever it's hearing, it'll pick it up and put it in its song. So when you listen to them, if you know other bird songs, you can actually hear other birds in their song. And you can tell who he's been hanging out with. And sometimes he'll start singing some crazy birds that don't even occur here, so you can tell he's really been going places. But it's just incessant. It doesn't stop. 2 or 3 in the morning. So that'll start happening, like February, March, April in particular. The mockingbird. This is a non-native bird from Europe, the European starling, Sturnus vulgaris. A fellow named Eugene Schifflin introduced these into Central Park in New York City back in the late 1800s. And then the rest of the story is they just spread from there, and they're everywhere now. And they're not good to have around because they are very aggressive and they steal nesting cavities from other birds. They're cavity nesters, and so any other bird trying to make a go of it and nest in one of these holes or cavities, the starling's going to kick them out, take over. So it's never a good thing when they show up in some of these nature preserves, because they're... anyway, they have a stubby tail. If you go to New York Central Park, there's actually a plaque there in a little garden where the original site was where they were released. You can reminisce about that tragedy. Now here's a beautiful bird that is on its way to us as we speak, and in fact I've already seen my first few of the fall, so that some of them are starting to arrive and more are coming. A group of these birds is called a museum. So 3 or more waxwings is a museum. And the other day I saw 3, so that qualifies as a museum of waxwing. And they're almost always in flocks though, sometimes quite large flocks. And they eat berries. They're fruit eaters and eat some bugs too. So you'll see them around the California fan palms with the fruits hanging down. That's what they love. So that's where you want to watch for these and the bluebirds and the mockingbirds and the phainopeplas. So many birds will be hanging around those California fan palms, Washingtonia foliifera, especially if you do not cut them. Let the fronds stay on those native trees and let the fruits develop, and these birds will really appreciate it. Cedar waxwing. There's another bird that eats those little dates on the native palm tree, the phainopepla. This is a really cool bird. That's the female on the left, the male on the right. It's a member of the silky flycatcher family, so it's a tropical bird. All its relatives are down in the tropics. And this is the only member of that group, of that family, that occurs here. And it's considered to be kind of an Ice Age relic. So when it was cooler here, when it was more tropical here, and it wasn't a desert, some of these birds remained as the climate changed and our area was turned into a desert. And that's what I mean by Ice Age relic. They kind of stayed on. This is one of those birds. And so it's a very unusual bird. Some of these birds migrate, instead of going north-south, they go east-west. So they'll spend the summer over near the coast in the coastal mountains, feeding on berries, mostly. Feeding on insects. And then they'll come to the desert about this time. They'll come over the mountains, come east, and feed on mistletoe berries. And they nest in each of the 2 places and raise young in each of the 2 places in 1 year. So it's a very unusual life that they have. No other bird is really like that. East-west migration, nesting in 2 different habitats, feeding on 2 different food sources each time. They've got a beach home, they've got a desert home. I think I want to be a phainopepla. They got a great life. And then the male always sits on his banner perch, so he always goes back to his same perch where he can survey his domain. And his poop piles up beneath him in a pyramid shape. I guess I don't have a picture of it in this show, I do in another. But these poop pyramids have a name, they're called tetrascotas. Tetrascota. That's a name that I made up. Well, I should use the word coins. because I'm trying to get it in the lexicon language. So you should say it over and over. Tetrascata. Tell all your friends. Put it on social media. I've got a whole bunch of photographs of these various tetrascatas that people keep sending me now. And I hope that you will too. So if you find one of these really nice poop pyramids, why are you laughing? Please send it to me. I'm serious. And I'll put it in my collection, and one day we'll publish a whole book together of these things. Tetrascatas of the Southwest. Boy, I've been hearing these guys every day, all over the place. They make this little tick. No, that's all they say. Tick. Tick. That's it. But once you kind of key into that little tick, you'll start hearing it everywhere you go. I hear it on campus, I hear it at my house, I hear it on my walk. They're here in the winter, and they've arrived. And they're in our yards ticking away. Orange-crowned warbler.
Where's the orange?
Yeah, good question. A lot of these birds, like the ruby-crowned kinglet and the orange-crowned warbler, were named by ornithologists who had like a dead specimen in their hand at the time, and they could actually peel back the feathers and see that there's orange in there. But you don't see it in the field hardly ever. Yeah, so remember, they were named in the museum. And it's a little misleading. Somebody sadly showed me a picture of one of these yesterday. Said, "What is this bird?" Because it hit their window and it kind of knocked itself out, probably died. But, that can happen too. So if that's happening to you, birds are hitting your windows, you got to do something about that. Hang something in front of the window that moves, like a wind chime or one of these bannery things, or just something. You got to get some kind of movement going on if you have one of those trouble windows that birds keep slamming into. And then start to figure out, why are they slamming into your window? Is it because they're seeing their reflection and they think it looks like the sky? If so, you might want to close your shades at certain times of the day when it's a problem, or hang something in front of the window, or send me an email. I'll come over to your house, look at the situation. I do this, and I will help come up with a solution. We'll figure it out. But we don't want birds to keep slamming into people's windows, because that's a real waste, and it happens a lot. Here's another little bird that winters here, along with the orange-crowned warbler, and this one's really common. This one you'll notice because it gives a loud chip note that's very obvious, and it's called the yellow-rumped warbler. It used to be called the Audubon's warbler, and then they changed it to yellow-rumped warbler. It's not actually the rump that's yellow. The rump is beneath that yellow patch. Those are actually the upper tail coverts, in case you care. But yellow upper tail covered warbler doesn't really roll off the tongue like yellow rumped warbler does. So we'll call it the yellow rumped warbler. Birders mostly call them butterbutts, though. Butterbutts. Because you always notice that yellow on the rump area.
Oh, look at this.
And this guy, the Wilson's warbler, named after the father of American ornithology, Alexander Wilson, is a migrant, and they pass through our valley, but they don't winter here. So they've already passed through on their way south to Panama and places like that. And they nest up in the Sierras, probably near some wet meadow, maybe Yosemite Valley. That would be like a perfect place for this bird to spend the summer. Wilson's warbler. But they'll show up in your backyard in migration, so watch for them. This guy will too. Now remember, not all birds eat bird seed, right? So if you feed birds, that's one thing. But tanagers and warblers, they're eating bugs or berries. They're not interested in your bird seed, but they are interested in your bird bath. So if you provide some kind of water feature to the birds, you can attract all these birds to your yard during migration. One morning, I could wake up in April and I can see 2 or 3 or 4 western tanagers at my bird bath. It's a beautiful sight, because they're passing through and they're attracted to the water. Now you want to change that water every 3 days, right? Otherwise you're going to breed mosquitoes. So as long as you change it every 3 days, you're good. And even better, if you can add like a dripping feature to your bird bath, that will attract even more birds and also discourage more mosquitoes, because mosquitoes like that still water that's sitting there. So add a dripping element if you can do it. Use a very shallow bird bath. The shallower, the better. Most bird baths and fountains are way too deep for birds to use. So consider getting a really shallow bird bath if you can find one, or add stones to it to make it even more shallow, and the birds will appreciate that too. These are part of the things I teach when I do these like backyard habitat workshops. You can learn more about these details. Or just keep emailing me the questions. This guy's on the ground. He's a big sparrow called the Abert's towhee, and they're here year-round. They're often in pairs. They got a little bit of black in the face. They're in my backyard, and probably yours too. The white-crowned sparrows have arrived for the winter, and they're so common. So listen for them. It's one of the few birds that actually sings all winter long. Most birds shut up during the winter and just make a few little chip notes, and they save their song for their summer breeding grounds, but not this bird. So you'll hear it. It goes like this. Something like that. So listen for its song. White-crowned sparrow, very common. And the dark-eyed junco is another sparrow that winters here in small numbers. Sometimes he'll mix in with those other sparrows. Got a dark head. And in the spring and fall, the black-headed grosbeaks, mostly in the spring though, pass through our yards and will stop at your bird baths. And they also like to eat black oil sunflower seed. So if you put out sunflower seed, try to choose the black oil sunflower, the all-black one, not the black and white sunflower. And that will really impress this guy and other birds that will eat that black oil sunflower. Black-headed grosbeak. And they nest up in Idlewild and oaks, places like that. This beautiful bird will show up at your bird bath in the spring, the lazuli bunting, on its way north and south in the fall. And it eats seeds as well. And the great-tailed grackles are more common than ever. They're also spreading due to our presence. They like the parking lots. You'll see them going underneath your car for shade when you park to go shopping somewhere. So they kind of hang out at the shopping centers, great-tailed grackle. And they're very loud and noisy and screechy and boisterous. And this is the male. He's got a really long tail. And so they've been spreading and expanding their range throughout the Southwest. We're done, yes. Brewer's blackbird, I'm done too. Brown-headed cowbird, the rare bronze cowbird, and the last, we're right at the end here, the orioles, hooded oriole bullocks, and Scots, and then the finches are the last family. House finch, lesser goldfinch, and Lawrence's goldfinch.
So the handouts that he talked about,
Yeah, if you want one of the handouts, take it. And I'll stick around if you have questions, come bug me. Thank you for coming, and email me.